Buckle your seatbelts, folks, because it appears the N64 Classic might be coming. Now, I'm not talking about it coming necessarily this year, although that is still technically possible. It could be a very late year surprise announcement. It wouldn't be out of Nintendo's realm to do this. But what's interesting is that we finally have definitive proof, definitive evidence that an N64 Classic is coming, and if not this year, then obviously next year. Now, this is obviously in wake of the PlayStation Classic, the PlayStation 1 Classic being announced. Nice naming convention, Sony. To note, a lot of people trying to say they're copying Nintendo on the idea. Technically, Nintendo is just copying the idea of like Sega and Atari and everyone else who's done this in the past. However, Sony did literally take the Classic name, and clearly there was a reason for that. But so what happened is Nintendo filed a trademark for what looks like a silhouette of an N64 controller. Now, that's usually nothing that's a big deal. Nintendo trademarks their controllers, their old controllers all the time. But what's notable about this is that the NES Classic and the SNES Classic both had similar trademarks filed before they were announced. And the symbol and the image used in those trademarks ended up being put on the literal final box. Here's a look at, obviously, the NES one from the trademark and then what ended up on the final box itself. And this is potentially possible that the N64 controller in this trademark could be the one that is put on the final packaging of the N64 Classic. Very interesting stuff. And obviously they could sell the N64 controller on its own as well. The details are obviously kind of speculative at this point. However, they applied for this They applied for this trademark like way earlier this year, like 6 months ago. But only on September 6th did it finally get approved. So this is already an approved trademark symbol for whatever Nintendo is trademarking it for. And we're assuming it's going to be for the N64 Classic Edition. Now, chances are the N64 Classic Edition, if we're just basing it on their pricing of the last two, going from $60 to $80, chances are the N64 Classic would match the PlayStation 1 Classic at $100. We don't know how many titles would be offered. We know that there were 30 on the NES Classic and less than that on the SNES Classic. So are we looking at 20 or less on the N64? Or are they going to jump it back up to 30? Who really knows at this point? It's obviously going to be determined on how many third-party games are on there. If they could work out with Microsoft to get all the rare games on the N64 Classic, that already would make it an instant buy for many, many people. That being said, I just want to say I don't know how excited I am for an N64 Classic. I figured I would be because it's one of my favorite generations of gaming from when I was a kid. The SNES is still like my all-time favorite system for now, but the N64 is the one that I did most of my local co-op multiplayer on, and I have fond memories of that, fond memories of lots of GoldenEye and lots of Smash and Mario Kart and all that stuff, Pokemon Stadium. Just oodles and oodles of memories from the N64 days. And I'm very curious to see what games will be included in this. Obviously, it's going to be a mini edition of an N64 running emulators, and that's fine. The logistics of it is pretty well established at this point. If you've seen or touched the NES Classic or the SNES Classic or even the NES games through the Nintendo Switch Online service, you already have a good idea on how this is going to work and function. I'm just very curious to see what the game lineup is going to be. Obviously, we assume it's going to be Super Mario 64, Ocarina of Time, and Majora's Mask. I think those are three, like 100% givens will be on the platform. But beyond that, I think it's anyone's guess at what games will be added both from Nintendo's library and potentially third parties. So we'll have to wait and see. Again, I'm guessing around $100. I don't think it's coming this holiday. I think the fact this patent just got approved, or this trademark just got approved, means that we're looking at something for next year. But, you know, it's possible. Again, Nintendo could surprise us. And wouldn't that be interesting for one holiday season to see the PlayStation 1 Classic and the N64 Classic go head-to-head? I think that's just a very interesting prospect. Way more interesting than the NES and SNES Classic going up against it, which, yes, they're still out there. They're still being made as well. So I am very curious to see if Nintendo does this so we could relive the old console wars from back in the 90s. I think it'll be a a roaring fun time if that happens, just among the various fans of Sony and Nintendo, because ultimately these are just collector's items. Yes, we will play games on them, but in general, after a little bit, they're just going to be like dust collectors, and the reason you get that is to have that in your collection, put it on display. Hey, look, I got this limited time released N64 Classic, and complete the Classic collection. And who knows, 100 years from now, that thing could be worth oodles and oodles of monies for my children's children, or whatever the case may be at that point. All right, folks. Let me know what games you would like to see on an N64 Classic Edition down in the comments below. I pretty much am on the fence of bring all the rare games or bring nothing at all, but there's a lot of things that need to be worked out with Microsoft to make that happen. Otherwise, folks, I'm Nathaniel Gents from Nintendo Prime. If you like this video, you know what to do, and if you dislike the video, hit that dislike button. Subscribe for more content, and I'll catch you in the next one.